guys, welcome to Rated M for Moms podcast. Your host Alex and Devin.
Okay. Woo! So introduce yourself, Nicole.
Yeah, so I'm Nicole. I am a certified pediatric sleep consultant. My business is Delightful Dreamers LLC, and I'm a mom of a 6-year-old girl. So that's just like the brief introduction.
It works for us. Yes. Let's see. So, how does, light exposure or physical, no, I guess the whole sleep environment.
Yeah, overall sleep hygiene.
Yeah.
Explain what that is.
Yeah, so sleep hygiene it's like a thing that I love to talk about because it really impacts our sleep. But it's made up of habits that have an impact on how we sleep. So things that we can do throughout the day to support our sleep. And this is true for kids, for adults, for all ages, really. And the things that I would say that I typically look at when I'm looking at sleep hygiene, you mentioned a couple of them, like sleep environment, light exposure. Our physical activity has an impact on our sleep, like daily nutrition, bedtime routines, and then just the overall sleep schedule.
Okay, so light exposure is the phone, technology, or light exposure outside light, like nature?
Yeah, so all of it, both. Light exposure, so the phone and screens, those emit blue light, which impacts our sleep, our circadian rhythm, makes it harder for us to fall asleep, stay asleep. And then getting outside when we can and exposure to the natural light helps support just our internal body clock. So getting exposed to natural light in the morning and then in the afternoon just kind of helps signal that clock to the time of day that it is. And then you were saying, the artificial lights like screens, phones, I always suggest avoiding those for an hour or two before bedtime.
That's like 45 minutes. She said an hour.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying literally to dim down and be able to have a peaceful night of sleep is 2 hours or an hour before you're about to go to bed. Light a candle, you can read a book, stuff like that, but don't have your phones. People are saying they put their phones to charge in another room. Yeah. Because we're so much on our phones nowadays because of all the things that is just or put your phone away from you on a nightstand that's not next to your bed, but put it face down. So you wouldn't even see the screen. You would know that it's over there charging, but leave it there, and then so you kind of wind down yourself and then get yourself ready for bed.
Right. Yeah.
So one of my questions, I know I see on their sleep schedule and nutrition. How big is nutrition a part of your nighttime sleeping?
I mean, it depends, and sleep is such an individual thing and varies from person to person, right? So looking at all ages, nutrition can affect sleep in different ways, right? So babies, we're looking at, they need to wake up to feed overnight. That's a normal thing, expected. But then for our kids, as they're having solids, our toddlers, bigger kids, and then us as adults, being aware of foods that have added sugar or hidden caffeine, those things can definitely impact our sleep. Having big meals right before you go to bed, digestion can affect your sleep. And then, everybody has different, everybody's different. So if you have food sensitivities and eating different foods that can impact your sleep. So there's a lot to consider with that.
There's so much that messes with your sleep. Is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I knew the sleep environment and things like that, but it's crazy.
Oh yeah.
So for us toddler moms here, what causes night waking and what to do?
Right, there's so many different things that can cause night wakings, and that's why, like, in my work, it's really so personalized because so many different factors. So, like, developmental progressions, that's something that can cause night wakings, or like they're more commonly known as sleep regressions. So, like, when our kids are learning new milestones, learning new skills, even when things like new things are happening, like back to school or starting care, getting a new sibling, all of these things can affect sleep. We don't necessarily think of it, but it can cause interruptions. But more like common things, like if our kids are ready to drop a nap, that can lead to night wakings. If the timing of bedtime needs to be adjusted. And then, like, we were talking about nutrition, so illness is something that can cause night wakings, of course, right? Like if our kids are coughing and sick overnight. And then environmental disturbances, so that's when, like, there's outside noises or lights that are coming through. I know, like, sometimes you think, like, your room is dark, but then there's a car driving by and headlights go past the window, or someone's walking their dog with a bright flashlight. So those types of things can all cause night wakings. And then, like I said, the timing of bedtime and the nap. So those are kind of just like the overall sleep schedule. So that's something that I always look at to see if it can be shifted to help with night wakings.
So what do you do in a night waking? Like, what is the ideal thing to do when your baby wakes up in the middle of the night?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the ideal thing to do is going to vary depending on your child, their temperament, and what is happening with that night waking. So, like, in general, I suggest just, like, pausing and taking a moment, because we do all wake overnight between our sleep cycles, right? So, like, us as adults, we just go right back to sleep. We don't realize that we're waking up a lot of the time. So sometimes, like, our kids can be waking, like, having a partial awakening, and we can think that they're fully waking up and need our help. And if we just give them a little bit of time, they can go back to sleep on their own. So that is always, like, my first thing, to just take a moment, pause, listen, see what's going to happen. And then from there, just going in and supporting your child as needed, helping them get back to sleep if that's what they need, and then really digging into what's happening and what's contributing to that night waking, and if there's things that we can change during the day. So really looking at from when we wake up throughout the day, the sleep schedule, that nutrition, if there's any dietary tweaks we need to make, if screen time needs to be shifted, things like that. So it's not just like a simple cut and dry answer. I wish it was.
But
that's okay, because, like, when my daughter wakes, I try not to, like, say much. I try not to like, have a conversation. I try to, like, physically feel if there's anything wrong, if she's wet, if she's this, if she's that, and I try to, like, get her back to sleep in her bed. But most of the time, she needs, like, to hold her, and then she'll go back to sleep. But, like, I try, before I even get to holding her, I try to, like, come on, just lay back down on your bed. So I her laying back down on her bed, give her a couple pats, and she'll literally roll over and look at me like, this isn't working.
That's not happening. I'm not going back to bed.
Right.
I'm like, okay. So when I get the look, I'm like, okay, we gotta change it up. But I was like, it's things that, like, we need to not do. But
yeah, I don't think so. I know some people will say, like, don't make eye contact, don't say anything. I'm not a fan of that advice. Like, if our kids are waking and need support, like, connection is a need, and we can meet that need with them as well. Yeah, so I don't think that there's anything that you shouldn't necessarily, like, not do. But it's tricky. And then, like, changing habits and changing patterns, it can take time. So I know sometimes it's like we try it once or twice, especially when it's the middle of the night and we're exhausted and it feels frustrating. It's like you just want it to work. But it can take, like, a week, 2 weeks, sometimes even more, and just like consistency and sometimes trial and error to really figure out what's going to work best.
I like that.
Okay, no, that's not a question. I just wanted to see if it was a question here before I asked it.
Okay.
At what age are they supposed to be sleeping through the night?
Oh my gosh. So that really varies. Like toddlers still wake up overnight. I've read so much research, and a lot of times you'll hear like at 6 months sleep will consolidate and tend to be sleeping through the night more. But I've read research studies where it's like the majority of kids from like 1 to 2 years are still waking overnight. And even children older than that. Because again, like I was saying, we all wake up between sleep cycles. So it's just like figuring out how to get ourselves back to sleep. So again, not a clear answer on that. But I think it's
I don't feel like it'll be a thing because like my 8-year-old, well, he'll be 8 tomorrow. He still wakes up in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
So I literally can maybe count with my 2 hands how many nights he's like completely slept through the night.
Yeah.
Since he's been alive. So like him, the way he sleeps, I'm like, I even went and got him a sleep test. They said it was like completely, nothing came back that was like striking to them. And now I have a toddler who seems to be on the same path as him. And I'm like, when do I get sleep back at this point?
Right.
And so, yeah.
So hard on years and years.
Yeah. Hopefully they grow out of, like, I'm hoping that by the time he's in his teenage years that he's like grown out of it. His doesn't like bother. I just worry, like, is he sleeping enough? Because he's the one who, yes, he wakes up, but he's also up at like 5, 6 o'clock sometimes with me when I'm getting up, and then he's not going to bed until 8, 9 o'clock at night. And I'm like, sir, I'm tired by like 7. How are you not asleep by then?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Right. And that's like, there is such a range of how much sleep we all need. And like sleep totals, because I know that's a question I hear a lot. Like so many parents worry that their kids aren't getting enough sleep. And, there's a range because some of us need more sleep. Some of us need less. It's like high sleep needs versus low sleep needs. So I always say, like, look at our kids and look at their behavior and, if they seem rested during the day, but it's definitely a stressor.
For sure.
Bruce definitely seems rested during the day. And you know when she's not rested and she hasn't got like her full nap. Because then she's hot. Yeah. So I know when she is hot, that's when she definitely has not napped.
Mm-hmm.
Some people go find no sleep. I don't know where, but I'll figure it out. But then when she is perfectly fine to be up and sometimes go like past the normal nap time window, I'm like, oh, okay, she's well rested. She got some good sleep, and I just kind of roll with it. But since there's no I used to be like, okay, she needs this many hours of sleep. If she's not getting it at night, she's getting it at daytime. So I used to be like that, but now I'm trying to let go and roll with my toddler.
Yeah.
Roll with the toddler years.
Yeah.
So what is the best time for bedtime?
So again, that's something that varies based on your child and your family. And this is a question that I definitely get a lot because I think there's a lot of pressure around bedtime being a certain time. A lot of families will say like it needs to be between 7 and 8. But again, that depends on like how much sleep your child needs, if they are high sleep needs or if they're low sleep needs. And then I also look at like your family, right? Like if you're working and not getting home and like getting dinner on the table until 6:30, like a 7 o'clock bedtime is just not going to work for your family. So I always say that the best time for bedtime is the time that works for your family, like your family situation, your child, and that allows them to get the amount of sleep that they need. So it's, again, like not a super clear answer, but it's one of those things where it's like you can look at the numbers, figure out like how much sleep your child sleeps on average during the night, and if it seems like they're getting enough sleep. And I find for a lot of kids that sometimes the bedtime actually just needs to be a little later, and it helps them sleep better. Though I'll say with like our toddlers, especially when they're dropping their nap, like the earlier bedtime can be such a helper.
Okay.
I found that out the hard way.
So ideally, say your toddler wakes up at 6:30, and then they go down for a nap at 10:30, and they sleep until maybe 12. What would be like an ideal bedtime? Is it 7? Is it 8? Or is it 6:30?
Yeah, so if it's again, it depends on like how old that toddler is, but with one nap, I find on average that like most kids can do anywhere between like 5 to 6 hours of like awake time. So if they're waking up at 12, like I would first suggest like having a slightly later nap so that awake time's more evenly distributed. But if they're waking up at 12, like a bedtime could be at 6:30, depending on the child, maybe like 7:30, but somewhere around then.
Okay, so 6:30, and then what? At like 12, you lay her down, right?
No. She doesn't make it. She doesn't make it that long.
Really?
So like my daughter, she's almost 2. She turns 2 in October. If she's up at 6:30, 6:45, before she's a complete mess and nothing is working, I literally can ask if you want to sit down and she's like, it's about 10:30. If we have like a full day, I can't, or like if we're out and like about, and like she's just not in any place where she can get comfortable and like sit and think about being sleepy, she can go until about 11:30. But that's about it. I can't get any further than 11:30. But usually if we're like at home and I've done, we've been outside, we've walked, we've had breakfast, we've played, we've done all the things. By that time, I've even thrown in some TV time. By like 10:30, she's like, all right, Mom,
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Can we go lay down? And she'll usually sleep until about 12:30. Like 12:30. And I try to at least get her, like, we start doing bedtime at 7:30. Once you start doing bedtime at 7:30, bath, like all the things, brush her teeth, take her nighttime medicines and all that kind of stuff, by 8 o'clock, she's like, hey,
I can go to bed now.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
I'm tired, but she still wakes up in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I would say, like you said, if she can get to 11:30, that would probably be like a better time for that nap. But again, it's like, you know, obviously I don't have all the information, but just to kind of like space things out and shifting things that could help. And I always say too, it's like when we're shifting our sleep schedules, just to do it gradually. Like if we can push things 10, 15 minutes one day, so that, you know, the nap is happening like a little bit later, or, you know, like for our other families, if you're shifting bedtime earlier, I know like a lot of people are thinking of that with back to school, but just like doing it gradually over the course of, you know, a week, depending on how much time you have.
So don't do it all at once. Try to gradually do it.
You know, if you don't have a choice, then you have to do it all at once, and we adjust. Usually I find you adjust after the fact, but when you have the ability to try to do it a little bit at a time, I find it just goes easier for everyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see. What are some freebies that you have on your page for listeners?
So I have a few different freebies. I'm trying to think about what I actually have linked right now. One of the ones that I pretty much always have is it's called 6 Tips for Better Sleep. And that one goes over like all of the sleep hygiene areas. It's kind of just like a cheat sheet with tips to get started with that. I have an Awake Windows free guide. So that, like the term awake windows, I had never heard of until I became a sleep consultant. I don't know if you guys have heard of that one.
What is it?
Awake window?
Yeah.
Awake window?
Yes, what is it?
So
it's like the time that your kid's awake.
Oh.
Yeah. From like when your child wakes up until when they should be ready to go back to sleep, that's considered like their awake window. And it, there's different awake windows based on age and how many naps your child's taking. So kind of just some general suggestions. And I know it can sound really confusing and like a bunch of math, which at least for me is the last thing I want to do when I am tired. So yeah, I made this guide that talks all about like what awake windows are, what they can look like. And I think there's just like some other general sleep information in there as well. And I also have a guide on nap transitions. So what to expect, like when our kids drop different naps and signs that they're ready to drop a nap and some tips to help with dropping the nap.
I ain't ready for the drop. I'm not ready for that nap drop.
Right?
Yeah.
The will fall.
Yeah.
Literally fighting me for 30 plus minutes.
Yeah.
To sleep before I'm like, okay, maybe we don't need this nap, but this nap is crucial.
This is a crucial to our day. So what does it look like for parents to work with you? Like, what's kind of like the steps there?
Yeah. So I always have the option of a free discovery call, and that's just like a 15-minute call, sometimes shorter, sometimes longer, where we just kind of get to know each other, talk about what's going on with your child. I share about my approach and the services that I offer. I take like a holistic approach to sleep. So I'm really looking at all of the different areas of sleep hygiene and the different things throughout our daily life and the family routines and everything that can impact sleep. So, just sharing more about my approach, the services that I offer, and talking about if it makes sense to work together too. Because I know sometimes I have had some parents call me, concerned about sleep, and we'll talk things through. And it's like, okay, what's happening is hard, but it's kind of typical. So I never am like pressuring people to work with me. So that's the first part there. And then right now my services are 1-to-1, and it's all virtual. So if we're working together, I would send you like a questionnaire, asking lots of questions about your child and your family and like sleep and all different things, their temperaments and where they're at with different milestones, things like that. And then we have a consultation call where we review all of that, and I share suggestions and tips and strategies. And then depending on what someone has booked, like that can be the end. You get a follow-up email with a summary of everything. Or I have options with packages that include daily support. And I really like that because we can, talk things through. It's through texting, so it's easy when you're, dealing with kids. We can just ask questions in the moment and support you through the process of making changes. So yeah, and then at the end of working together, I share like a follow-up document, kind of review what we worked on, and I also share tips for like the future, what to expect. So like based on your child's age, what's coming up next. And, like if your child is still napping, but could be dropping the nap soon, I would talk about that. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's scary.
She said dropping a nap sounds so scary.
It does, I know, but that's why I like quiet time.
Yeah. It really is. It really is, because it's like, okay, we can get like 2-3 things done out of the day that needs to be done, and we're like, oh, it's done without worrying about all of the other things.
Yeah.
Like, oh, at least I did 2 to 3 things on the list.
So, what are your thoughts on sound machines?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like sound machines. I have my own sound machine that I sleep with. I typically recommend them just because they can block out outside noises, environmental sounds that could impact sleep and cause wake-ups. I generally recommend, like, when you're using them, to have them across the room from where your child's sleeping, right? So you don't want it, like, right on top of them. And then there is, I'm trying to remember, the AAP has recommended, like, what the maximum decibels should be for sound machines. And I want to say it's, like, 50 decibels. I would need to double check that. But so just making sure it's not too loud. And there are free apps that you can use to check how loud the sound machine actually is. So yeah, I like to use them. I like to have them on all night. I know some of them have timers and can shut off. And I find that can sometimes be disruptive and can cause kids to wake up. And I know not everybody likes sound machines, and for some people it's like just really irritating and can be stimulating. And if that's the case, then I suggest trying to put it outside of the room, so like outside of your child's door, so that it's still kind of blocking out that outside noise, but not necessarily like bothering them.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't even know that there was a certain sound
that it needed to be non-loud.
Yeah.
We also share, so I share a room, so she has it in my room, so it's relatively loud to drown out anything that's extra. And I happen to sneeze or like
need to cough.
I need to cough. So it's loud, but it is actually kind of close to her, so maybe I'll move it.
Yeah.
Keep it in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, see if we can put it over like near your desk or something.
Right. Yeah, I just double checked it, and it's, it shouldn't be louder than 50 decibels and should be at least 7 feet away from where your child is.
Yeah, 7 feet.
Yeah.
There's no 7 feet at all.
So try that and see if that works with her.
Because I know that, like, it's really interesting because I'm pro sound machine, but then I also hate it because if it's on and she's asleep, and say I literally just got a text message before we start recording that my power is out, which then just means the sound machine is out. She's not awake.
Yeah.
Because there's no sound machine.
Right.
Yeah.
So like that's where my love and my hate for it goes.
Yeah.
But it does. I have 2 other kids and they're loud, so the sound machine drops out, but she can go to sleep before they do. So yeah.
Yeah. I definitely get that. It's, and that's, like I said, it's like some of the ones that are on timers, they shut off, and like I was experiencing that with my daughter. I didn't realize ours even had a timer, and I was accidentally setting it, and I'm like, why do you keep waking up 1 hour after you go to bed? It was because I had set the timer on the sound machine for an hour, and it kept waking her up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it definitely can happen.
They're capable of doing that, but I don't have it set like that though.
Yeah, but that's where I wonder too, like just turning it down a little might help. And that's, sometimes it's like if it's quieter, when it does shut off, it's not as drastic. And I know some of them, even like some sound machines, when they're turning off, they just kind of fade away instead of in a breath off, which I like that.
Definitely, for sure. There's a couple things we gotta work on for these girls, because
Right, there's so many things that go into sleep, and it's like some of it I didn't even know about until I was a sleep consultant. So that's where I'm always like, I am judgment free. It's like we used to do TV up until bedtime because I thought it was like helping us unwind and it would let us get stuff done. And then I learned like, you know, it was stimulating for her, and you know, that light exposure and shifting it earlier in the day, it definitely like helped improve her sleep and my sleep as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm
down the boys because they watch TV literally up until bedtime.
Yeah.
It takes them 30, 45 minutes to fall asleep. So like that's why we were like, oh, you can watch it, like go get in your bed after your bath, watch a little TV, and then right before it's like time to bed, I'm like, okay, turn the TV off. It takes them about 45 minutes to fall asleep. So we were like, oh, okay, this is enough time for them to
like decompress,
yes.
but maybe they need it like
a little extra.
Yeah.
Maybe. And the girls too. I feel like the girls, like, we can wind down TV by like 6 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm turning it off.
6 o'clock and then until 8 o'clock. And then I feel like 8 o'clock should be like bedtime, right? 7:30?
Yeah, we do wrap at 7:30.
Yeah.
I felt like we've learned this
was a good one. We needed this information because these girls,
especially right now, and I don't know, I haven't looked because I just haven't had the chance to look to see like what leap, or if she's in a leap, or if she's in any, like if at almost 2, if there's something that could be happening why she is not sleeping through the night. But she's always not been a great sleeper, and I just contribute that to like Nikki life. She needs, like, if it's quiet, she's not gonna fall asleep, because I just feel like her first month in the hospital, the machines are beeping, the kid her machine beeps, if another kid's machine is beeping, so the next one knows the other kid's machine is beeping.
Right.
So it was like just constant noise for the first month of her life. So that's why I tried to like make sure that she has a relatively noisy space for sleeping so that she can sleep. But she's never ever been a great sleeper. Like even as a little bitty baby, it's never been great. And I'm always like, guys, like I complain to you, like, why is she not sleeping? I don't know, we're not getting sleep.
Amanda still doesn't sleep through the night.
I was always asking her because she's just not been a great sleeper. And like, I can definitely understand shifting her morning wake time, but I've also noticed that her morning time is literally the shortest amount of time that she can stay awake. But I think that's also because no one's home. It's just me and her and like the dogs. The boys are gone. Yeah. And they're at school. So I think that's why it's always.
She's like, I'm bored.
All the tricks. We can go on the side. We can do all the things. And she's just like, it's not cutting it, Mom. And
it's not cutting it. I need my brothers.
Yeah. Afternoon is usually her longest wake window just because the boys are not home. They're doing things. She's doing things. It's not just me and her, even though I'm really pulling tricks out of my hat for her to keep her entertained. Right, so when you said that, I was like, And I thought about it, like her wake window has always been like that short. She can wake up like before she was waking up at 6:30, she could wake up at 8 and then she'd be ready for bed by like 11.
Yeah.
It's always just been shorter, and her afternoon's always been like the longest.
Yeah, and that is common. I see that the morning awake time does tend to be shorter than the afternoon one. So I do see that a lot. Yeah.
Okay. So it's normal.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you. It was so nice to talk with you.
Welcome.
Thank you for being on. We appreciate it. It's a lot of information.
Yes. With your message of like, hey, sleep has been great.
Yes.
Great.
Right.
We're going to change things here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on. I really do appreciate it.
And that's Rated On for Moms podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode. Like and subscribe.